In the final episode of Season 1 of Uncharted, your sidekick for life, we welcome Donald Harris, a veteran of the video game industry and the founder of ATX Game Makers. ATX Game Makers is an organization dedicated to increasing diversity in the gaming world. This episode unpacks Donald's journey from his early days as a teenage entrepreneur to his impactful work in fostering inclusivity in gaming. Join hosts Dan Dillard, Dr. Leon Vanstone, and myself, Natalie Peyton, as we explore the importance of mentorship, emotional balance, and the power of community in shaping the future. Donald shares personal stories about his unique path into the gaming industry, the challenges of being a minority in tech, and the life-changing power of a good mentor. He also offers insights into the creation of his nonprofit, ATX Game Makers, as well as his commitment to helping the next generation of game developers. Special thanks to our Gen Z contributors, Edwin, who asked how he could achieve emotional balance, and Justin, who expresses his desire to be a part of something bigger than himself, like a nonprofit. So without further ado, let's have a listen.
Welcome to Uncharted, episode 12.
Woo!
End of season 1.
Ooh, I was going to say, when does how many episodes are in a season?
12.
Wow.
12 seasons.
So I'm the season closer.
Yes, you are.
Season
We saved you. We
Ooh.
saved you to the finale.
So we need some cliffhanging, okay?
I'll think of something.
Yeah, right.
Let's do some quick intros.
Cool. Hey, everybody. I am Natalie Peyton. I am an actor, comedian, and podcast person, Natalie.
He gets it. Gets it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Leon Vanstone, rocket scientist, storyteller, and entrepreneur.
Blase.
And a very blasé, darling. Rocket scientist, darling.
So you set me up that I have to follow the rocket scientist?
No, I'll
He
do it.
goes next.
I'll go next. That way it's just like, I'm just Dan.
Not under the bus. I'm just Dan.
Dan Dillard, podcast host, co-founder of Founding Up, and background in media and finance. So that's
Love it.
that's in a nutshell. And our guest host and guest mentor today is none other than the great,
The illustrious.
Wow.
Be fantastic.
Donald Harris. So my background is video games. I've been in the gaming industry for almost 20 years at this point.
Wow.
And I founded an organization called ATX Game Makers, where I help increase the diversity in the games industry by way of mentorship, inspiration, and entrepreneurship.
Now you guys know why I brought him on
That
the
was
show.
pithy, man.
So
You've said that
cool.
before.
Oh, yeah. At least 30 more times in the car ride over. So, yeah.
Nice.
So now you know why when Donald and I met for coffee, I'm like, dude, we're in such alignment. Let's go. Let's get you on the
For our
podcast.
listeners out there, Dan just brings these people in. I don't even know who they are. We don't even talk about it. You're like, who's this guy?
I was having coffee by myself, actually.
Dan does
It
that
just
a
shows
lot.
up.
Dan does that a lot.
That's funny. That my granddad used to do that. He used to see somebody eating alone and be like, pull up a chair. Let's get to know each other.
Wow.
I love that.
I don't know if I could be that outgoing. Okay.
You look lonely. Let me keep you some company.
Yeah, I know.
You're
Some
like,
people just
no,
want to eat
I
alone.
was having my alone time right now.
No.
Well, Donald, as we discussed over coffee, Uncharted is all about mentorship. We especially mentorship for Gen Z, as we've discussed. There's several generations representation here, and we've got a correspondent host. So it's been us. So it's been Anais, and talked to Gen Z and asked them what's going on with what keeps them up at night, and kind of figure out what those worries are. And our goal is to try to see how we would have responded to that at their age, and see if we can provide some help.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, I want to hear more about, I've heard about, and I want everybody else to hear about your background and why mentorship is so important to you, so close to your heart. So can we start just like before you got started into gaming? Let's just, when you were 20 or 18, like what was your life like?
I was 17.
I'll take you all back younger than that.
All right.
When I was like maybe 10 or 11, my dad was an entrepreneur, and part-time entrepreneur. He still had a full-time job, but he also used to like film weddings and parties and all these different events and things like that. And he had this really great business doing that. And so I got to see that aspect of like making money and making a living. And it was interesting because like I could see him do that, but then I could also see him go to work from 9 to 5 and then on the weekends doing that hustle to try and make this thing work.
Right.
My mom, on the other hand, was very much into the community, and she launched this organization called Black Arts Festival.
Mm-hmm.
And every year in Fort Pierce, Florida, she would take over the Civic Center, which is akin to our convention center.
Right.
That's a big space.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, as a kid, I was like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
whatever,
I don't
man,
wanna
yeah.
go,"
Go to
you
mom's
know,
thing.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, mom's thing, mom's little thing. Looking back on it, holy crap, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
now in the other parts that I'm about to tell you is like she would have people coming in from all parts of Africa, all parts of the world coming in to show off art, to show off dances, different cultures,
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
and all of these things, and she just opened it up to the public. And so like that just sat in me. So those two bits of my parents have definitely sat in and molded me. And so as I got older, before like you guys were making comments on how tall I am, before I had
tall
the
are
growth
you?
spurts, I am 6'8".
Wow.
Yeah. Hence the online name Tall Gamer. Super creative.
I love it.
But as I got older, before the growth spurts, my dad brought home computers, and that was it for me. I was just like, oh, I don't know what this magic box is, but I got to do this.
Mhm.
And so yeah, it's like I started because my mom was in the community and all of that. She knew all of the doctors, all of the lawyers, and they all had computers, but they all had computer problems. Oh, call my baby. He can
Aw.
help fix it. Da, 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 da. And then like I was like, my mom and dad were dropping me off at the doctor's office to go behind the desk.
Stop.
Right?
You're 15 with an IT consultancy, basically.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. It was the weirdest
so
thing. And then
great.
like I remember vividly my dad one day pulling me aside like, hey, you're charging $5 an hour. Like that's not right. You could be charging much more. Your knowledge is value.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I can make money, real money. He's like, yes. And so, I think at 17 is when I had my first office outside of the house. I was getting I was friends with the UPS guy because I had so much hardware coming to our house and all of this stuff. And so,
That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Did you incorporate or make your have a name?
I got a sole proprietorship. Oh my
I
gosh.
remember the silver partnership. I had one of those
Did
too.
you?
Yeah.
Oh, this is so great.
H&S Tech.
H&S Tech. How old were you?
That was 17.
What did H&S stand for?
So I had a friend who could program,
Right.
and his name was John Stevens. So
And
Donald
you were
Tech.
Harris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, makes
And
sense.
so I had all the clients at first. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to come up with the name Harris H&S Tech. So yeah, yep, we were so cool.
Did you have an exit for H&S Tech?
Yeah, what was
No.
your branding
Yeah.
strategy?
My exit was to get out of my parents' house.
Yeah,
There you
right.
So you can claim an exit. You can
Yeah,
claim it.
no.
So it's almost as if you didn't really have a plan. It's like it's a theme.
It's a thing.
Everyone we talked to is like, nah, I didn't really have a plan. Just started doing things. See, some things worked. I did more of it.
That
The things
was
that
it.
didn't work, I stopped doing. The
You know-
things that did work, I did more of.
This
Yeah.
takes me back just when you said sole proprietorship. I'm like, oh my, I'm 50 now. So my first business side hustle, I was 18.
When I
was And I was I went to work for a veterinarian when I was 16 and just loved animals and was an assistant. But his wife owned a real estate agent or just some homes, right? And so she rented them out. And then she'd go repaint them herself. Like her husband had taught her how to
flipping
paint.
houses, basically.
No, they were just leased houses.
Or just maintain.
Yeah,
them.
maintain them. And she pulled me along and taught me how to paint.
Oh.
And so I learned that skill at 17. And so decided, that I wanted to open up a little painting business. And so I started Perfect Touch Painting.
That's
And
so
it was
cute.
PCP.
it was so cute because it was like the touch was just, I misspelled it as TUCH, and it was the logo was this painter dripping paint in the back. So it's like this messy little painter. And that was my card. It was, I can imagine
love
that.
that.
And I was a sole proprietor and I did that. And you know what? For that time, I was making good summer money. Like I would go paint a house and, $600-700 and it was like good money for me.
Right, remember, ladies and gentlemen listening, Perfect Touch Painting. I'm sure his copyright has expired. That branding is out there for one of you who's unsurprising.
But
now I have to share mine.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I was 12 and with my friend Amanda Jones, we started Cherry Cleaning Co. And we did it specifically, CCC. We specifically did CCC for our teachers. And it was a little bit gaming because we wanted to know what the inside of our teachers' houses looked like. So we started a company.
Slightly creepy.
Sorry, Mrs. Berlanga. She literally messaged me recently on one of the social media apps saying, Cherry Cleaning Co. for life. And we would clean our teachers' homes. And I don't even know if we took payment because it was just it was like illicit for us to be able to have a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And Cherry Cleaning Co. was my first venture.
Right. That's awesome.
So anyway, you've moved out of your parents' house.
Yeah, we need yours. We want to hear yours.
What's your
I did not have.
He was too busy studying. He's a rocket scientist. Right?
Well, I didn't have the guidance to bother starting my own company. But back in the day, kind of like you, I got into computers and I liked building them. I got quite good at building PCs, putting the hardware together and sort of knowing where all the price points were for performance and things. So my friends would start asking me to build them. They'd give me a budget. And I'm like, that's about the best PC you can manage. And at the time, Alienware was up and coming. Yeah. And like, they were they still are so overpriced if you know what you're doing. At least that's my opinion. Obviously not factually for any Alienware
we don't want to sue
company listening, just my opinion there. And But so you could get Alienware performance for like a third of the price if you build it yourself. And so I started doing that, and then my friends got in on it, and I was building it for them. And I thought, I could just be really easy to sell things on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
So I started offering computers on eBay and did a little bit of that. And then I don't know, it didn't make a lot of money. Like eBay was real cutthroat back in the day because you were kind of competing with people who were just genuinely selling things at half price.
Right.
And it would have required quite a substantial upfront cost, which it actually looking back, and it wasn't much money at all. But for me at 17, it seemed like an enormous gamble. Yeah. So I did a few and then I just gave up. Yeah. I went to university was what happened. So it kind of just, I'm not doing this here.
It fizzled out.
Yeah, it fizzled out. But there you go. That was my...
Well, now that you've gotten to know all our kind of first intros of business.
Stories.
Yeah, origin stories. Back to 7 years old. No, I continue.
So you're 17.
You're 17. You've got this thing. What's the next thing? How did you get into gaming?
The next part of it was I ended up moving to Texas. So I was decently successful at the business, and like thinking about it now in this context, it's like, man, I was like 17, 18, running around these big orange juice plants, like fixing their machines. Like I was like thinking about it, like maybe I might have been in places I shouldn't have been, thinking back. But around 1999, I moved to Texas around the .com bomb.
Uh-huh.
And so, I was like getting hired to... There's this one job I got that they were like, hey, we want you to be a server technician. You're going to be messing with these new Blade servers. I'm not going to say the name of the company. I think they're still around. But they were giving, I was like 20 at the time or something like that. And they were giving me like $30 an hour.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, that's money. I get in and they're like, hey, you see that pile of boxes over there? Break those boxes down. And I'm like, all right.
I mean, $30 an hour, man, or whatever. I'll do that.
Right.
I don't care.
I did it for about a month before they figured out, like, oh, shoot, we don't have money to pay this guy to, And so I just kept bopping around to different jobs. And then I ended up working at Dell. So speaking of Alienware, I worked at Dell for almost 10 years and killed it. So I was in sales and did really, really well for myself at Dell. And at that same time, Dell was going through, so this was around like 2007, right before we got into that economic slump. And so Dell was doing their cutbacks and all of this stuff. And I started looking around at different options, like, okay, well, what am I going to do next? I love playing video games. I don't know how to make them. What skills do I have right now? I can talk to any stranger and tell them about anything. I can sell ice to an Eskimo, you know. Can I sell something in video games? I started looking around and I found this company called Garage Games. And they were selling a game engine. And so I said, well, shoot, all I have to do is just learn the features and benefits, and then I can sell this to developers. And that's what I did. That was like one of my first major roles. I had some like QA jobs in between, like small little QA jobs in there. But the first major one that I realized, like, this is it. I can make this a big career.
When we were chatting the other day, you were telling me about through your gaming though, you had a name and that people recognize you because of that.
Oh, the tall gamer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So online, pretty much everywhere you could, like, if you look up tall gamer, I still have to buy the URL. Probably shouldn't mention that on the podcast.
We can cut that. We'll cut that.
Cut that out. But you know, I go by tall gamer. And so being a minority and a giant really, really helps me get recognized. And so like I can like walk into like any event and, you know, people, tall gamer, they won't even call me Donald. It's like, tall gamer. I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? TG, you know. And so, you know, yeah, I just, one thing kind of led to another. And I've worked at EA, I've worked at Blue Point. Currently working at a studio called Farbridge. I've been there for like 7 years.
Heard of them,
yeah. And so we've like, it's been a very, very fun career. And then at one point in time, I remember, so back when I was trying to get in and study different companies to figure out where I could work at, I was attending conferences in Austin. And there's this one mentor I had. His name was Tom Biscigula, and he's now known as the game attorney. And this is like for any Gen Z folks who are watching this is like a super important thing for me in having the right mentor. I was like, hey, I really want to get into games, like, you know, and he's teaching me all these things. He's telling me about all these companies. And he's like, okay, come with me to this conference. It's like, I really don't have a lot of money. I'll try and go. So I'm going, and we're walking around the conference, and this man, literally, we walk up to the Sony after party where all the Sony VPs were. And Tom goes up, and they're like, hey, is your name on the list? He's like, yeah, my name's Tom Biscigula. Look me up and goes, yep, gotcha. Whoa, sir, you're not on the list. And Tom looks at the guy and goes, he's with me, and just grabs my hand and walks right past security.
Yeah, he
and
did.
I'm like, what the hell? And so it's like having the right mentor.
I love that.
To break you in. Literally.
Metaphorically walk you into the room, but also sometimes literally.
Very literally just walk me into the room. And I found myself surrounded by these VPs. And, you know, I didn't know anything from anything. And I'm just like, and he said, it's like, now you just listen and learn.
Aww.
And I was like, yes, sir. Okay. I'm here. Right. You know, and so having a good active mentor is amazing. And I did get contacts from that event. And so, yeah. So now, you know, continuing on, I'm now like almost 20 years into my career, and I'm trying to now do that for others. And so during the pandemic, I started an organization called ATX Game Makers. And so for y'all not watching the video, I'm pointing to my logo on my chest here, but you know, it's that organization that I started was basically to help increase the diversity. And so I went with a purposeful blanket term as increasing the diversity, because I didn't want to just focus on, oh, I'm just trying to help one race or one gender or this, that, or the other. I'm trying to help people who feel like they don't have a home or a safe place to learn about games. Come to us, ask us any dumb question. We're not going to shame you. It's like when I was like really, really young and playing games, I remember it was the place for the uncool kids to go.
Right.
Yeah,
People who
I got
did-
bullied for playing video games
Yes.
when I was like 11.
Exactly. And so now it's like everybody is in the games, and now the people who are on the outskirts
Are the weirdos, right?
Yeah.
it's just like, no, hey, come here. I got you.
Aw.
Let's talk about games. Let's figure out a way to get you into games, And so
The diversity thing reminds me of a story you were telling me about how you showed up at somebody's door and they were like,
oh yeah. Yeah. So man, it's okay. I thought of that story because I already mentioned the company, but I'm not going to say it again.
Okay.
But I'll tell that story. So this was, again, being a minority in the tech field and in games, even more so. I was trying to work at this one company, and I was on their forums for like ever and a day. And so this is back in the time where
It's like active community member. You stuck out to them through the forum and you're hoping for a way-in.
every time someone posted, "Hey, Leon, man, that's a great shirt. I like video games too." It doesn't
Right.
matter what you were talking about. I was on it, right? And I was
very genius.
Yeah, I was going through my sales career. I was just like trying to be your friend, just
Right.
letting you know and becoming familiar with you. And so they had this role pop up, and this role I fit perfectly for. And I was like, yo, I submitted my resume, and I was like, hey, Leon, hey, man, did you see I submitted my resume for that job? And he was like, oh, yeah, Donald, don't worry, I got you. I'll check it out. I'll send it to the hiring manager. Sure enough, they flew me out to Oregon. And I don't know if you've ever looked at the population of Oregon, but
I assume it's 7 people.
and of those 7,
None.
0.1 of them might be black.
Right.
Might
Right?
be.
Might be.
Right.
So I walk up to the door, and it's on a Saturday. And I walk up and I knock on the door, and he comes to the door, and literally, first words out of his mouth, "Oh my God, you're black." Or I mean, and he didn't. His brain was just not fast, or his mouth was too fast.
Yeah, his mouth was faster than his brain,
Like
man.
mind blown. What?
Needless to say, I got the job.
Yeah.
At that
Yeah.
point,
Hey.
You get the job.
at that point, I had the job.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like,
Like,
exactly.
So now let's negotiate price.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So that's the interview done, and now we're
so
negotiating.
interview was done at that point. But he literally just could not fathom, like, oh God,
Yeah.
yeah, different people like video games.
Yeah.
But that helped you understand that there's diversity need.
Oh yeah, and that's not the only instance. It's
Right.
just like, I will still to this day I'll find myself in boardrooms and just like, there's no women in the boardroom, or there's nobody with just not standard, white male,
Right.
and it's
There's no
just-
global majority.
there's no global majority.
I like that.
I think the only time
Nice.
there was one
Right.
time recently, I was in this one boardroom. It was with Nintendo, so that was some diversity in that room
Right.
for sure, and that was intense though, man, because they don't speak English to you. They understand it, but they don't, because from my understanding, in Japan, it's sensitive for them to like screw up your language.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
They don't want to embarrass themselves by speaking
Right.
poorly.
Man, let me tell you, that was so intense, like a power dynamic, because like I'd be like, hey, X, Y, and Z, and then the translator
They'd
the
say
translator
Japanese.
wouldn't say anything. He would say something looking at me in Japanese, and then the translator would be like, oh,
Oh,
yes.
It's just a
da-da-da-da-da.
one-way translation.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir. And
Wow.
I'm like, wow, man, that's hardcore. So
I want to talk about one thing, and I want to get to the questions.
yeah.
More about this, because what
Yeah,
is
can I see one?
Yeah. I brought some gifts.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
So
A
part of what I do for my organization, so like I said, is it's all about diversity and trying to help these folks get hired. Every year, I open this up to my organization, and it's free to the members. The members do not pay a single cent for anything. 2 big things I do is I do this book, which is called the ATX Game Makers Book of Talent. And so every year,
It's like a CV book.
yep, It's exactly
For
what it
those of
is.
you listening, it is literally a glossy book of beautiful talent
Resumes.
It's like a little
resumes.
portfolio, but
Yeah,
a bunch of different
portfolio.
people.
Yeah. And so what I get to do is when I travel for work, I get to see people in power.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're having a problem hiring diversity? Great. I made you a book.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
clever,
so,
man. That's actually a really
Yeah.
like innovative way to
Yeah.
put an incredible number, like a literal book's worth of people's CVs in front of someone that could
Yeah.
that has the authority to hire them.
Yeah.
Donald, are you,
And-
is your company listed on BLAP?
I don't think so because I don't know what
It's a-
Black is.
It's a geolocation app for Black-owned businesses.
Oh, okay.
My ex created it actually, and he's now going on the circuits to talk about it publicly. But I'm going to introduce y'all because
Thank you.
you've got to be on this app. It's
right.
it's really cool.
The other part of that is what you do for South by Southwest.
Yeah, yeah. So I was going to say that. So the other part of this is right when this, or a little bit after this book is published every year. So happens around February to late March, depending on how much time I have. In March, I always throw a South by event, and so I go and do a whole bunch of fundraising. So expect some phone calls from me after this. I do a whole bunch of fundraising for my 501c3, and in March, I throw a big South by event because South by is pulled out of games and things like that. So I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, we're putting games back in. But what I do is I turn around to my community and say, hey, any games that you guys are working on or anything that you want to show off, you're going to come to this bar that I've now taken over and you're going to set up shop and
I'm gonna show you a little hot
Showcase.
and just showcase yourself. It's called the ATX Game Makers Arcade Showcase.
Wow.
And then, of course, I turn around and I start putting the word out and I get all my professional friends to come through,
Come by and check it out.
check it out, say, oh, hey, this is great. You know, we've had like Activision show up, Bungie, big names just like coming through the halls. And so, yeah.
So this is why there's so much alignment when we met, because it's all about mentorship. It's
Yeah.
all about doing work to help others, lift others up, right? So
Yeah.
I love the work that you're doing.
I like creating opportunities. And what's interesting about the page, so you're looking at Karina, what's interesting about those folks is they're a part of ATX Game Makers, but they formed a company called Merge Conflict, and my company outsourced some work to them.
Yeah, nice.
So like the company that I work for, so it's like this full circle awesomeness. So
Is
Love it.
there any crossover in your career with either Fred Schmidt or
Fred Schmidt.
Richard Garriott?
yes, of course.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Fred Schmidt's my mentor.
Yeah, Fred is
One
awesome.
of them.
Fred is awesome.
He is. I
Yeah.
adore him.
I got stuck on Richard's boat. I don't know if it was his boat, but it was one of the picnics.
And I'm not living the right life if I'm not getting stuck on someone's boat.
Exactly.
Richard Garriott used to throw this this Gamers Paradise picnic every summer.
He invented one of the first video games.
Yeah, one of the best.
One of the
Ultima, the Ultima series, Lord British, and
Indeed.
but yeah, he had this boat and like this. It was a part of the party and got stuck on it and all this stuff. But like, what was cool was we need to get to the questions, but Fred, they used to have this office on Richard's property.
On its boat.
No, this is a cabin. So Richard is very rich. And so
Putting the rich in Richard.
yeah. And so, he did go to space.
He's an
Yeah.
astronaut.
Scientist.
Yep.
But he had a cabin on his property where they set up shop, and so we would go down there and I would meet with him and talk with him. And so yeah.
That's so cool.
Love that.
Nice.
All right. Before we continue, let's jump into the questions.
Yeah.
We're running out of time. All right. First question. Edwin. See what he has to say.
If you could ask any mentor a question about life, whatever you're dealing with, what would you ask them?
A lot of it will be about emotional balance. How do you keep that emotional balance throughout tough times and even throughout good times? Yeah. Sometimes, feeling too happy can make you miss out on certain things. Feeling too unhappy can also make you miss out on certain things. So definitely I've seen balance help me out, seeing the clearer picture. So, and that was a skill that I had to learn, and I still have to develop even more to this day and probably more in the future. So that would be my question.
Question on balance. for one, when I heard this, I thought, wow, that's a very insightful thing to think about, because all of us, even now, have to deal with balance, and the fact that he's like, I've worked on this skill, but I still want to know more from a mentor. Thought, kids, he's thinking. I was very proud of the thought process there. But yeah, in my life, obviously, balance is always, because we always get steered into, whether it's business or whether it's, your family life, or raising raising my daughter. It's always been like, okay, where do I focus? And so the balance thing has been tough. And then you have the daily things that happen, the things that you're not even planning for. And so
Life happens to you, man.
life does happen
When you're busy.
Yeah.
It seems like especially when you're busy.
Yeah.
Just so
Yeah.
happens.
So any thoughts on balance? Like, what have we all done to kind of help with balance?
Yeah.
We'll look
Natalie,
at-
were you finna speak? I don't
I'll
wanna cut
speak
you off.
after you. I know what I'm going to say.
It's interesting because I am a very
You're very tall into the balance, kind of like, oh.
yeah, my low center of balance. No, it's funny because this past week, I think I kind of told y'all when I was coming in, it was like a very, very busy week, and there was some emotional balance that I had to do.
Mhm.
And you have to do that even in a professional setting. Once you get into a spot, things go wrong.
Yeah.
And some people can call it putting on a face, but it should be deeper than that. Like I wouldn't tell this person to be like, oh, hey, just smile through the sad times and kind of dial yourself back.
You guys still got to feel your feelings.
Yeah, you're gonna feel you're human. Everybody's a human. I would say, like, during the sad times, be aware of your pain.
Mhm.
Instead of trying to figure out if you're too unbalanced or this, that, or the way, be more aware of the pain and figure out what's causing you pain. And if there is a solution, try and address that solution. When it goes on the other hand of being too happy, for me, I'm a like in my heart of hearts, like I really do love sales and like talking to people. I'm extroverted. Man, I love being happy.
Mhm.
Like I lean into it. Like if you're happy, you did something great, celebrate that. Let that emotion go through. Like if you're in a spot where they frown upon that or frown upon you being happy of an accomplishment, you might want to rethink where you are.
So some people, and not to cut you off or anything, but just one of the things I did get from that, some people do get complacent when they're happy, and that may be some of what he was thinking
Ooh,
about.
okay.
When you're happy, there's no demon chasing you down the road. Why do you do
Yeah.
anything anymore? And
Ooh.
that's because you're a go-getter, right? So you're like,
Right.
I'm happy and I'm still getting it.
Yes.
But some people, they get happy and they're like, oh, well, I'm in a good spot. Maybe I don't have to. So that's one element or one different take, maybe.
Yeah, okay. In that sense, I would say then once you find yourself happy, be aware of your goals. Are you happy because you've accomplished a goal? If so, create a new goal so that way you can create that own drive in you. So yeah.
I was going to talk about something so simple that he specifically said emotional balance,
Mhm.
which made me think of sleep. Like it's so simple, but if
Yeah.
there is a lack of, I consider myself an ambassador to sleep because of my children's bedtime podcast. But if you're not getting enough sleep, there will inevitably be an emotional imbalance
Right.
or dysregulation.
Yeah.
And I clock it immediately if I'm sleep deprived. I am a different person. I am not fun to be around, and I'm incredibly emotional. So sleep is the first thing I would say to him. Just check in on that and make sure that's happening well. And then the other part is self-awareness. Just being able to clock when you're emotionally dysregulated and being able to lean on friends and talk it out. That helps me quite a bit. I'll go to Dan with a problem that has nothing to do with work. It has to do with personal life. Like, okay, I don't know how to manage this. And then getting other people's perspectives for me is super, super helpful.
Anybody listen to Ed Hartoli?
Uh-uh.
So great person to listen to. He's got some pretty, and I'm drawing a blank on the book's Whole Earth or something like that. But it really talks about this like stoic way of life, like just being this kind of like high. So that's what this reminded me of, like the high highs and the low lows. It's like, look, life is going to happen no matter what, and you got to be okay with it's going to do this. And it kind of reminded me of that whenever he was saying that, which there's a lot of really great nuggets from living that. And I'm also very positive and always bright side, glass half full kind of person. But I also acknowledge that, you know, when I was thinking about what he said, is some people get this rush of a high, and then if it doesn't work out the way they think it is, it's like they hit the valley. And I think what I heard here, and maybe not, was don't have those peaks and valleys. Just kind of know that everything will be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hearing. What he's emotionally trying to get to. But you know, and I totally agree with it. I think that, you know, I celebrate wins for the day, right? And tomorrow's a new day. Let's see what tomorrow brings, right? And if it reminds me of the song, like sometimes things don't work out when you want them to work out. Reminds me of the song Unanswered Prayers by Garth Brooks, where it's like something wasn't answered, but then down the road he found, you know, a much better answer. And I see that in some of the things through life. Like I've seen some things that go through life that seem like downs, but they're actually just failures that helped you grow. And the next door that opened was a much grander door. So having that perspective in the rearview mirror to see that, then it does help you kind of have that, you know, even keel when it comes to ups and downs.
Yeah, I mean, I just throw in something I had recently. I forget which book this was from, but it said that things are rarely as good or as bad as you think they are. And you know, that's a lot of sort of what you've said. Like things can be great until suddenly they're not, and things can be bad until suddenly that changes. The ups and downs of life are inevitable, and some of, you know, I also do quite like the Stoics. You know, try to worry about the things that are within your control, because otherwise you'll be worrying about things you have no say over. Roll the dice. If it's a 1, you're sad, and if it's a 6, you're happy. But that's a tough way to live, man. I guarantee you that you're going to have lows and highs.
Right.
And so, yeah, just like you say, celebrate those wins. I think you both kind of sort of said it. Celebrate that win when it comes, and think about what tomorrow's going to bring, because that win may not be there tomorrow, man. You can get that job and you can lose that job, or you can, whatever it is, found that company and crash that company. So, you know, I agree with that. And sort of going back a bit to the question, I suppose he talks of balance. I don't know if I tend to find the way my life works, it tends to have a focus. So I'll be trying to move something forward, whether it's family or whether it's relational or whether it's business or career, whatever it is. Like there's something I'm trying to move forward. And perhaps coming back to something you said a little is the important bit. The way to strike some balance then, if you are trying to focus on getting something done, is not to forget to maintain the things you do care about. And later on, those may be a focus in my life, and that whatever I'm doing now may take a back seat. And that's how my life tends to work, which is just something that works for me. I'm not saying that's a model for everyone, but like I'll have a focus, but it is important to, you know, 70% of my effort goes there, and everything else gets, you know, 30%. And it's about, well, how do I maintain these things and make sure I get things done?
One nugget that I want to share that I've learned is that throughout a large part of my youth, and even to most recent, like me, 5 years ago, I had this thought about balance within a day. Like I have to do all these, I got to exercise, I got to do yoga. Like all these things are so good for me. I got to do all these things. And it would stress me out to try to do all the things in a day. And then I tried to do that for a week, and it was still too stressful. And because I can't fit in a yoga and I'm just using that as an example, but all the things I want to do in a week, sometimes I can't fit them in a week. And then
don't forget to work 16 hours because you're a hustler.
Exactly. And so in doing that,
8 days a week,
in doing that, just time was this thing, and it made me feel like I'm not being balanced because I'm not doing all the things I want to be doing. And as I've gotten more experience and learned more about life, I learned that there's seasons in which you do things. It's not necessarily like I did a 20-day fast like in June, right?
Wow.
I thought about doing
Ladies
that fast.
and gentlemen, He was surprisingly not that hangry.
I thought about doing that for 6 months before I did it. And it was in my head, and I just, I wanted to do, I was actually going for a 40-day fast. But at 20, I said,
Nope.
no,
You need a future goal. You need a next
exactly.
goal.
But no, what ended up happening was my daughter said, I want to go do a birthday trip. And it was right in the middle of this thing. And I'm like, I can't, do. And I was glad.
That,
And I was
ladies and
glad.
gentlemen, is balance.
I was glad.
Yeah.
You focus on the fasting, but you're like, hey, do you know what?
Right.
I'm going to choose this one because
Yeah.
of my daughter, right? And that's a day or two only for
Right.
your daughter, but still, that's the 70-30, right?
Exactly. And so what I've learned over this period of time is grace. You have to have grace, and balance and grace go together.
See, now, and you're using that word. I've been thinking about this one thing as well. The other thing I would tell that young man is that don't try to be perfect. Because I think sometimes when you say the word balance, like, oh, you got it, nailed it perfect. You can't be perfect. No one can. Right. Part of my emotions, I lashed out at my girlfriend when I shouldn't have. It was all this stuff at work just kind of piling on me.
Do you want to apologize to her now? And that
I've apologized several
No,
times.
But if you do it on a podcast, you can always just play.
Yeah, you get
backwards.
extra brownie points. You can just listen.
I love you, baby. You were right, and I am sorry.
Just send her the link, to the timestamp, right? And it'll just open it up and it'll play.
Put on Alexa alarm every morning.
I can use that clip from the future. So I can use it many times.
Send it to you.
I love you, baby.
Make it a gift.
I'm sorry.
We'll loop it.
It's
Sorry, I cut you up, but you were finishing your.
No, it's just I just wouldn't want them to try to be perfect in their emotions. It's just things get worse the tighter you try to hold on to things.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too, because we were actually just talking about the show, right? Like, one of my flaws, one of my few flaws, because I am almost perfect, of course, is I want a perfect plan. All right, like I try to have this kind of, and one of the things I try to constantly remind myself is that now is normally better than better, right? Like if you sit long enough to come up with the perfect plan, right? Somebody else will have come with a terrible plan, figured it out by iterating rapidly, and be beating you because they got to market 2 years before you did,
that's where
right?
co-founders, because I'm like, plan.
What's a plan?
let's execute.
Let me tell you how this is going to happen.
Right. I'm like, that will never work.
I am like that. I will run through a wall and just figure it out on the other side of the wall. But I made it through the wall.
Exactly.
But that's coming back to you. But don't try to be perfect. Don't have some kind of plan. But look. What's the saying? Plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. Always have a plan, never rely on it. Everyone got a plan till they get punched in the face. But you say, don't try to be perfect. Have some idea of where you're trying to go and why. Have a North Star, have a general direction, because otherwise you're just grabbing in the dark. But at the same time, trying to be perfect, going back to the rocket science, NASA tries to be perfect, tries to have a perfect rocket.
Yeah, I think
takes them 10 years to launch.
You got it.
SpaceX.
I think you should try to be perfect there.
Or plan for that.
Or plan to be perfect.
I may
Well,
have
but the
shared
SpaceX
this.
just blew them up on the pad, right?
That is
Right.
true.
NASA would never dream of blowing up 8 rockets on the pad, right? Because now some congressman has to explain it. I mean, there's a lot of politics behind it. SpaceX are like, kaboom, hooray! They don't, and that's a win.
Rapid
that's a win.
disassembly.
That's a win for them.
Rapid
Because they learn something, they'll do it again in 6 months. Whereas NASA, they launch one, it'll take them another 10 years. Because that's, and I'm not here to fault either organization. I'm just saying, sometimes you're a lot faster. Be imperfect. It's quicker, right?
And learn.
Learn. It's a quicker
Right.
way to actually who you want to be.
I like it.
I may have shared this on the show before, but one of my cousins recently told me to the amount of time that you spend stressing on something, and then when it goes just fine, spend the same amount of time rejoicing on it going just fine. And I have been thinking about that quite a bit.
Man, I'm thinking about certain people in my life.
This one is on nonprofit.
What could I do that would personally myself to help others?
To get you on the track to be a part of nonprofits.
Exactly.
So there was, as we went out and interviewed people at ACC, this individual, Justin, he's put him on the spot with a microphone. He's like, I'll do it. But then as he was thinking as who am I? What do I want to become? It's like, we were asking some probing questions, and he's like, I just want to do good. I want to do good for others, maybe nonprofits. And so that that's a good. I thought it'd be a good question for you because you
Yeah.
have a nonprofit. Like
Yeah.
how does one, you know, work with a nonprofit or start a nonprofit or all of that? So
You just do it. Just like we
that's
just said.
Nike. That's
Yeah.
Nike. That's Nike.
Yeah.
Organic.
But like you can have a plan, but literally just turning to your neighbor and saying, "Hey, how can I help you?" That's step one. When I started my foundation, I had almost zero plan. I was kind of like him. It was like I wanted to help people. I knew that I was in a place with knowledge and connections to be able to help people. And I was literally just, my boss and I were talking one day, is how this whole thing started. And he's like, "Hey, so and so organization is shutting down their gaming gathering. What would you do?" And I was like, "I don't know. Like, I would start one, and I would try and like help more diversity in the industry. Like, I try to help the people on the outside to get in and start." He's like, "Yeah. What would you call it?" And I'm like,
Man,
I
he
know-
said you walked
Dude,
straight into this one.
walking me like a dog. and he's like, and while he's doing it too, mind you, he's on his computer.
He's typing.
Making notes.
And I'm like, "I don't know, dude. ATX Game Makers. I thought we were here to talk about our clients." It's like, yeah, I know. But okay, where would you like?
And
Would
if you had, say, $1,000 a month budget, what would you do with that? Asking for a friend.
You were getting ahead of me. He then goes, "Where would you host it?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe like at a coffee shop because I like coffee." And he's like, Cool. I just bought the URL. I transferred it into your name. Here's my credit card. You're gonna have your first event in the South by Southwest coffee lounge." I just checked with him. What?
What?
And so yeah, shout out to Patrick Curry.
Patrick Curry for
Yeah.
the win.
That's
We
how
need to
that
get
happened.
Patrick on the show.
Yeah,
Yes,
actually,
yes,
yeah,
damn it.
you should. Yeah, he's
Wow.
great. He is absolutely great. But yeah, and I'm just like, yeah. So to say to Justin, dude, just do it. It's like like, first off, find something that you care about, that you want to help people on, and you can find a bajillion nonprofits out there. But if you want to do it your way, and just stand up and do it. Like, no one's gonna stop you from helping people.
Mhm.
They shouldn't.
Unless
They
you're
might.
handing out free food.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's okay. Some people, there's right ways and wrong ways to do it, but like, literally, my advice to him would just be, man, just to do it. Just ask. There's plenty of people who need help,
Mhm.
unfortunately.
And there's plenty of mentors that would help, or people that would, like, so if, I'd imagine if someone came up to you and said, "Hey, I want to do XYZ gaming thing," as long as it's vaguely aligned to the principles you cared about, would you help me set
yeah.
that up? Would you be a guiding hand? I'll be the face, you tell me what to do, kind of thing. You'd be like, hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
You might even be like, "Here's $200 to buy coffee, like once a month."
I just contributed to a friend of mine who she started a camp in this rural, very, very rural place. I think like 40 kids showed up. And she's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm starting this thing." And I was like, "Cool. Let me give you some money." She's like, "Well, I was asking if you wanted to come and speak at it." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'll do that too."
Money and
But
speaking.
yeah, like, yeah, I'm definitely
That's so
down
cool.
to help, and just like, yeah, there's plenty of people to help him get started.
I don't know that many people know this. So one of the things we always talk about, end in mind. I think you mentioned having the end in mind. We've talked about, actually, it's a conversation we're having. Yeah. To your point about talking to neighbors or finding out what's going on, there's the last I checked, there's over 6,000 nonprofits in Austin alone.
Wow.
Right. So the heart is there. People are doing things. So if you don't know what you want to do, just look up nonprofits in Austin, and it'll help you kind of figure out what's available. And all of them are seeking either volunteers or donations, or they're seeking help of some sort.
The way you figure out what you want, when you don't know what you want to do, the way you figure out what you want to do is to start doing something.
Yeah.
And you'll either figure out that you didn't like it,
Mm-hmm.
or that there was a part of it you liked, and you'll
Yeah.
follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think every year Austin has this 1 week or a day called Amplify Austin. And it's
Right.
all about nonprofits. So if you really, really want to, besides the looking up and doing that, you can participate in that week and see what it's about. And but yeah, I think that advice is, both of that advice is spot on.
And Justin and Donald, like Donald's mother as well, you all are starting from a foundation of wanting to get back to your community, which is so important. I'll just mention the nonprofit that I work with. It's to help spread awareness and stop the stigma about drug addiction. It's called Into Light Project, and it's because of our fentanyl and opioid crisis in our community. And so just starting with something that you're passionate about is a great way to then branch out and give your time.
I love this. I haven't done anything yet, but you know how I think about things for like 6 months before I start doing it?
Yeah.
One passion of mine that I'm going to get and start doing stuff about is clean up the ocean.
Mm.
Yeah, so they've got this, when I saw the videos.
Going to the middle of the Pacific?
I'll do something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but
he brought this up on purpose because during coffee I told him I want to retire on a boat, so he knows.
Yeah,
he's baiting me.
Yeah.
That's it.
But alarmingly, there's this, and there's people doing something about this, but there's this trash the size of Texas.
It's in the middle of the Pacific.
Exactly.
Pacific garbage patch.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that, is alarming. So because the ocean is like,
there's a 17-year-old fixing it for us. Don't worry.
Right. But that's the kind of stuff I'm like, that's in my heart. I want to contribute to that. So, all right, I've now committed myself on the podcast to go do something.
Yeah.
Declare it.
Yeah, I've declared it. And that's all the time we've got, folks. I really enjoyed it. Donald, or should I say, what was
Tall
the
Gamer.
TG?
TG. Do you go by TG? Is that like a thing? Or
No,
but it is now.
I guess.
Yeah,
It is
it's
now.
TG.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah,
And
thank you, Donald.
I personally don't feel like we got enough of your presence. So maybe next season.
I would.
We'll-
definitely
we'll-
love to
we'll-
make
we'll-
Yeah, what's
more
our
appearances.
cliffhanger?
Cliffhanger.
Season finale. You need like a promise that's going to get people back. Like, going to be on the show next season. And
On the spot.
yeah,
on the
I know.
spot.
He
Under
likes
the
it.
boat. We'll edit it back and we'll fix it in edit. We'll fix
How about
in
this?
post.
How about this? I will tell you guys about an event that I've held since then.
All right.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, until next time.
Lives are on the line.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you guys for
Thank you
having
guys.
me. It was awesome.
And that concludes Season 1 of Uncharted, Your Sidekick for Life. With reflections on the ups and downs of the entrepreneurial journey, discussions on how to maintain emotional equilibrium, and tips on starting a nonprofit, we packed this episode with wisdom and inspiration. As a season finale, it sets the stage for even more dynamic conversations in the seasons to come. We hope you enjoyed this episode's blend of humor, heart, and actionable advice. Follow us on the socials so you don't miss any announcements on our upcoming Season 2. If you would like to participate as a Gen Z guest or a mentor, visit our site at foundingup.com or check out the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for joining the Founding Up and Uncharted teams. Special thanks to all who make this podcast possible, including Katie Nolan, Nolan Calicott, and Anais Schmidt. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with your friends. Until next time, keep exploring the Uncharted.